and welcome to this week's edition of Mysteries of History. Thank you for joining me, Francis Doyle, as we take a look at a figure who was very influential in the foundation of our nation. Some of you may have heard of Squanto, God's special Indian, who helped the pilgrims through their time of need. Some of you may have heard of how he helped them plant corn and taught them fertilization tips such as putting fish in the corn while they were planting. However, how much do you really know about the man behind the Indian? So come, join us as we take a look at the life and times of Squanto, God's special Indian.
He spoke English and planted corn. Lots of corn.
Civic. Race car. A man, a plan, a canal, Panama. What do those words and phrases have in common? They were all coined by Squanto.
Actually, no.
He was amazing at gourd growing. It's really creepy.
All he did was plant corn. That's pretty much all he did. He didn't breathe, he didn't eat, he didn't sleep. We got worried about him. We sent the folks and the white coats down to see him. He ate them.
A man who was very influential to the foundation of the very first Thanksgiving. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the great mysteries of Squanto. Squanto was captured in 1605 by one George Weymouth and taken to Britain, where he was taught English and eventually returned to the New World after escaping to London. Once there, he began work as an interpreter for the pilgrims.
And so these Indians, trustingly came down to the water to trade with these Englishmen, and of course, these were bad Englishmen in this ship, and they took Squanto, they put him on their ship, they took him across the Atlantic Ocean in 1608, a little boy from a tribe in Massachusetts, and sold him into slavery in Malaga, Spain. And so he gets kind of dropped off around, what's today Plymouth, which is where he grew up. And he runs home, and he goes to the village, and there's no one there. Everyone has been wiped out by smallpox, which is, a nightmare. So after 10 years of dreaming of the day that he would go home, he actually gets home, and everyone has died. And so he went to live in the woods alone by himself. It's incredibly sad that his dream almost came true, and then everyone had died. Living in the woods alone, and then cut to a year later, this band of pilgrims, we call them pilgrims, gets off a ship called the Mayflower, and they settle in a place called Plymouth, Massachusetts, which was exactly where Squanto had grown up.
A friendly Indian named Squanto helped the colonists. He showed them how to plant corn and how to live on the edge of the wilderness. The soldier, Captain Miles Standish, taught the pilgrims how to defend themselves against their enemies. Squanto became very good friends with the pilgrims and eventually went to live with them. Without Squanto's help, it's very likely that they never would have survived their first winter in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
I knew him. He was a good guy. Lived right down the street from me. He was always planting corn in his garden. He actually planted so much corn that we got concerned, So we called the white coats up to come, check in on him. And they took him away from his corn, and that just wasn't good. He was actually in the jail cell. He kept planting corn. And we didn't understand what his obsession with corn was, so we ended up having to go kill him one night. We hung his body down by the river. Blood flowed right down the stream. To this day, I wonder what it'd be like if he died. He's still alive, actually. The blood's still going. He's screaming for help. No one will help him. Don't ask me why. He's a good guy. Just no one knows him. Oh, he was a good brother. He was a great father. And he was an amazing lover. One of those lovers you don't have to love. I hope I could help.
Squanto died and was buried in an unmarked cemetery, in an unmarked tomb. However, in the early 90s, evidence was brought forth to suggest that Squanto, God's special Indian, may not actually be dead after all. Take a look at this footage which was brought forth by an eyewitness who claims to have seen Squanto. Right, so there I was in my yard, spying on my neighbor Gerald. He was, runner-up in the abnormally large vegetable contest. I wanted to know his secret. Ironically enough, that is right at the exact moment that I saw a 6-foot-tall Indian standing over me. And people laughed, but was I frightened? A little. Was I aroused? Yeah, I mean, it was a 6-foot-tall Indian, barely clothed, just right there. Clearly, in the video, you can clearly see he waves his hand. If you look, he actually waves his hand. You know, he waves his hand. Clearly a gesture of friendliness. Squanto was known for his friendliness. I mean, there's no mistaking him. It was him. It was Squanto.
And this is the first time that you have had a encounter with Squanto.
Yeah, it's the first, but hopefully it won't be the last time.
Do I believe in the existence of a 150-year-old man? In the existence of Squanto? Yeah. Would I make love to Squanto? Perhaps.
Okay, so yeah, I am Squanto. I'm God's special little Indian, and as you can see, I'm still alive. Yeah, what can I say? So to be honest, I've never really liked the name Squanto. My real name's Squantum, and as you can tell by my accent, I've spent a little bit of time with the British colonists. So, you know, it's rubbed off on me, if you know what I'm saying. And well. To get back to your first question, would I make love to myself? I'm gonna have to pass.
Squanto. Friend, relative, lover to some. Exactly who was Squanto, the world may never know. What we do know is he was extremely helpful in the process known as the First Thanksgiving. And even though he died in relative hatred by his people, he will surely always be remembered as God's special Indian. I'm Francis Doyle, and thank you for joining me on Mysteries of History.